Friends, listeners, movie haters out there, this is your ever humble host, Freedom Dave, broadcasting live somewhere deep in the heart of Gothic Magdeburg, Germany. And today we have a very special guest, author Marie Gates, who has written quite an interesting book called Are We Our Past Lives? Marie, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Very nice to speak with you this evening. How are you?
Oh, I'm very happy to speak with you. I'm fine. It's blazing hot here in Michigan. 94 degrees
Wow.
when I got out of the car.
Wow, is that like close to a record or what? That's incredibly hot for Michigan.
Well, we've been approaching records for the last few days. Yeah, I don't know if we broke one or not, but it's pretty close.
Wow, you could send some of that heat over to here to Germany. I think, this is, they say the coldest winter I ever spent was the summer I spent in San Francisco. Well, the same goes for Magdeburg, Germany. Yeah, this is pretty much the coldest winter I ever had was the summer I've spent over here.
Wow.
So
Well, we could use some of the coolness.
yeah, sure. So Marie, please tell our listeners a little bit about your book.
Okay, I usually start off by letting people know how I got interested in reincarnation.
Sure.
And at the time that I was a college instructor at the University of Alabama, I knew a student who was acquainted with a hypnotist who did regressions into past lives. And at the time, I was an agnostic. And it was not a really pleasant way to be, because every time I got in the car, I thought, if I'm killed, what's going to happen to me? Am I just going to cease to exist? I really did want to believe in something, but I just couldn't help myself. I just didn't.
Now, but is it an agnostic? That's not like an atheist. An atheist doesn't have religion?
Not quite an atheist. An agnostic is a person who just doesn't know if there is a creator, if there's life after death, and that sort of thing. We just, a lot of us are academics, and we're very interested in logical things and proof and all of that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And since we can't prove the existence of a God, we just wonder if there is one or not.
So that's
where I was back then. But then I got with the hypnotist, and he uncovered 5 past lives. And one was as a Native American, where I was a young man who was a peacemaker. And some of the other braves in my tribe were envious of me. So they decided to tie me up near an eagle's nest. Mm. And the eagles attacked me. Now, I don't know if they actually killed me or if I was dying of dehydration or what. But anyway, there were eagles present at my death. And from then on, I believe, I know in this life, I'm afraid of them.
Marie,
if I go to the zoo, I don't want to go near them.
Now let me ask you, Marie, like when you're in a past life therapy, and are you remembering, are you seeing these things? How does the experience come across to you?
Well, I do see images. In fact, we are encouraged, I think, by most hypnotists to look at ourselves, to go back in time and to see what we had on, what we look like, and then our surroundings. So, yeah, imagery is important there. It's more imagery than it is language. Like, I don't remember German. I one time was a German woman, but I have never learned German, and it didn't seem to come easily to me. But then, of course, I never really had a course in it. So, excuse me, I don't know. I was also French in another life. I did try French in college. That didn't work out so well. So it's mostly the images, it's the memories that come to the person. And if it is something that they have experienced in a past life, it would be mostly in terms of imagery. At least that's the way it came to me. Now, getting back to where I was back then, I did uncover 5 past lives during hypnosis, and one was of an American woman who lived in New Haven, Connecticut in the 1940s. And according to what I said under hypnosis, she was very unhappy with her husband. He was abusive, so she took a lover, and she ran away with the lover. And this had a very strange twist, because the lover was not an earth man, but he looked like one.
What?
Was from another world. And that really intrigued me.
What do you mean another world? A spirit or an alien or what?
No, he was an alien. I mean, he was an alien in physical form, the same as we are. He was white, like I am, and he could speak English.
He was humanoid?
And it was, pardon?
Was he a humanoid alien?
No, he was perfectly human.
Okay.
And from what I have read from UFO reports and that sort of thing, some people have seen humans with these humanoids. And sometimes the humans seem to be in control, which I think is very strange, but who knows? I mean, there could be humans like us living in another world similar to ours, so we could breathe the air and we could live there. Who can say there isn't? And they could be visiting us, and some people think they are among us, walking on our streets, and we don't even recognize them.
Yeah, that's for another show even.
That's for another show. Yeah. And one time I was at a psychic meeting, and I swear this guy, my friend that was with me, thought the same thing. I swear this guy, he acted like he might have been one of them. And he was a tall white man, human in every way we could determine, but he talked about aliens like he really knew what he was talking about, and he had a strange air about him.
So when you're going
you
through,
never know.
Marie, when you're going through these therapies and you're getting these memories, and I guess I'm talking about the initial therapy that you had, was it a complete shock to you, or were you like, were you like skeptical of where these memories were coming from? Were they being implanted?
Very skeptical. As I said, I was an agnostic. I really didn't believe in anything spiritual. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I was very surprised. So I got this life story of the woman in New Haven, Connecticut. And at the time, as I said, we lived in Alabama. But we really I wanted to go back home to Michigan. So my husband found a job in Michigan, and we moved back here. And he said, well, why don't you go explore this past life? Why don't you go to New Haven? And so I did. And just before I went, I got this strange feeling, that, well, what is going on here? What am I going to find? I was kind of a little bit skeptical, but then a little bit afraid. Well, what if I did find something? But so I went there, and one of the first things I did was to go to the library and look in the city directories. Mm-hmm. And I said a prayer, even though I didn't really believe in God. I hoped there was a God. And that I opened the book, and sure enough, there was my past life husband's name in there. Mm-hmm. And my name was in there. And the street where we lived was in there. The address was in there. So the next day, I took a bus out there, and it was in an old part of New Haven where the buildings were close together. And the building that was identified in the city records was a liquor store in the bottom. Mm-hmm. I thought, well, do I have the right place? But because it was an open, public place, I could just walk in, so I did. I started talking to the proprietor, and I said, do you happen to know the owner of this building from the 1940s? And he said, sure, I'm buying the building from him. So he gave me the name and the phone number of the old landlord. I called him up, and right away I got the married name of the young woman who had grown up in that building, who had been my daughter in the past life. Mm-hmm. I called her up and started talking. And she said her mother had a very hard life, that the father was unemployed during the Depression, and then he went to work for the DPW. She had to be the breadwinner of the family, so she was working at the A&P grocery store chain as a stenographer and worked very hard all week, and then had to come home and do the housework. And they had a hard time in the cities in those days. They didn't have automatic washers. They had to send their wash to what they call the wet wash, and it would come back wet, and they'd have to iron it all day long. I imagine that was towels and sheets and everything, not just clothing. So she wore herself out, basically, and died at the age of 53.
Marie, so this past life that you were exploring here, this was the one with the woman that had the affair with the alien entity?
Yes. Okay. That's
did the daughter ever meet?
Things I was telling you about before, that whatever comes through, from the other side or from the Akashic records or whatever you want to call it, you don't always get it just right sometimes, because we are dealing with a different dimension. And so some of this is not 100% accurate. So I asked the past life daughter if her mother had ever been involved with another man. No, there was nothing like that. Was the father abusive? I had a lot of nerve to ask those questions, but this woman was very open. And she said, no, none of that was true. So that part of what I had said, I might have gotten mixed up with another life, I was thinking.
Well, the children aren't always privy to that type of information anyway,
Anyway, at first I was skeptical. I thought, well, maybe I've got the wrong woman for some reason, And so I asked about the death scene. I said, how did your mother die? And she said, she had a bleeding ulcer. And she had worked very hard getting the apartment in perfect order, because the brother was coming back from World War II. And she just worked herself to death, literally, and her ulcer ruptured, and she had to go to the hospital. And then I called my past life daughter Amanda. That isn't her real name. I want to protect privacy. But anyway, Amanda said her father had been Catholic, and so he insisted on sending his wife to a Catholic hospital. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, oh my God, this is the memory I had from childhood on. It was my first memory of dying in a hospital bed in a Catholic hospital, because the nuns were habits in those days in the 40s. And my daughter was with me. So I said, were you with your mother when she died? And Amanda said, yes. I held her hand, and I can still remember the image of her in her dark wool coat. This was February in New Haven, with her scarf, and that's what they wore in those days, beside my bed. And I thought, I've got to believe this now. It confirms this ancient memory I had, but I don't remember anything else from that life. But the thing of it is from when I did my research, I found out that if a person is likely to remember anything from a past life, it's likely to be the death scene. And that's especially true if either it is a premature or a violent death. Well, this wasn't violent, but it was surely premature, because the woman was only 53. Her daughter was to get married at the end of the year, and I'm sure she was anticipating grandchildren. So in that respect, it was premature. And the other reason I think I remember is because I was born just almost to the day 3 months later after she died. So it was a very close incarnation. And that does happen, and if it does, you're more likely to remember. It's like in this life, you might be more likely to remember things that just happened rather than things that happened years ago. Unless you're a senior citizen, then you might remember things that happened years ago better than yesterday. I don't know, but normally I think you do remember things that are closer in time.
Now, Marie, do these death experiences, do they come back to us in the form of dreams?
Sometimes deja vu. Now, getting on to my next book. My first book is called Shadows on My Mind. A psychologist explores reincarnation and PSI, psychic phenomena, in other words. And that's where a fuller description of the past life of Amanda is given. I talk about it in my second book, Are We Our Past Lives, as well. But from our We Are Past Lives, I have a good example of deja vu. And that, again, is with a Native American. I was I think in the 1100s AD, and I didn't know about this, but when I went to Arizona visiting the earthworks of these Indians, where some of their canals are still in use in Arizona around Phoenix, and well, we went to a visitor center and we saw some of the earthworks that they had done. I didn't want to leave that place. There was a familiarity to it. I loved it. Mm-hmm. My husband had to drag me away from there. And of course, at that point, I didn't know anything about this life as a Hohokam Indian until I had gone to a spiritual therapist who told me about it. Mm-hmm. So that was a deja vu, a feeling I was here before and I liked it. I didn't even want to leave.
Now tell me a little bit, because this fascinates me, about how we are born into new bodies. I think on your site you were mentioning that you believe that before we're born, our souls consent to take up certain roles in life. Can you tell me more about that?
Okay, we all have our life plans. We choose who our parents are going to be, where we're going to live, our future occupation, our physical characteristics like blonde hair, blue eyes, our race, our height, possibly weight, but that changes, we know that. Everything about us, our personalities, what our preferences are, what our interests are. If we have any defects, like a physical defect, like a cleft palate or something like that, or a like mental illness, all of that we choose before we're born because we want to achieve certain balance in life. We want to balance our karma, which we could call memory in a way, but traditionally what people think of karma as cause and effect. Like if you did something to somebody in a past life, then you have to make up for it in another life. That's a more traditional way of looking at karma, but it also can be looked at in a very general sense. That it can be positive too. It doesn't always have to be negative. But anyway, when it is negative, you want to work that out, either with the person you need to work it out or a situation or whatever it is. So you come into life to work that out, and you might choose a mother in a past life. You maybe were her child and she mistreated you, so you're going to let her be your mother again and maybe make it up to you.
Oh, man.
And so you're going to both work out your karma then, because you certainly had a negative relationship, so karma was incurred on both sides. It wasn't just the mother that incurred it, the daughter or the son incurred it as well. And I have an example from a past life, from my French life that's in our We Are Past Lives, where my mother in that life was the same mother that I have in this life. And she was trying to make up for the way she treated me in that life, in this life. What happened was she conceived me out of wedlock in the French life. She was a member of the upper class. This was during the time of the French Revolution, or of course, when I was conceived, it was just before the French Revolution. And she wasn't permitted to marry the man she loved, who was somebody from a lower class. And so he just took off and went to Spain, and her family arranged for her to marry an older man. And I was born away from the community because, of course, it was a shameful thing to be pregnant before you were married. And I was presented to people as the relative's child, where the relatives couldn't take care of the child. The mother might have died or something. And so I was a poor relation. That's what I was known as, a poor relation. Mm-hmm. And my mother didn't stick up for me, and she had 3 other children by her husband, and I was just the low person on the totem pole. I mean, I played with the servants, and I was just never treated as a daughter. And then the French Revolution came, and we were all taken and guillotined.
Oh, my goodness.
And at the guillotine, I was pleading for myself. I was saying, I don't belong to this family, because of the way they treated me. But they, of course, ignored me, and I was killed the same way as the other members of the family were killed.
Why were they killed?
But because we were of the upper class. It was the French Revolution, and they killed the upper class, and they killed a lot of clergymen. And it turned out by the end of it, a lot of people that were considered working class or lower class were also killed. There were just a lot of people that were guillotined during the French Revolution. I was, because I was of the wrong class.
Oh, my goodness.
And people had, they had their prejudices, put it that way. But anyway, a strange thing happened and this I didn't even know about until a few years ago, but when I was a teenager, I was, I believe, in the 9th grade, and we had to do a biography and an oral report on it. And so I chose Marie Antoinette. I don't know why, but I did. And I was pleading in front of the class when I was giving my oral report about how they shouldn't have executed all of these members of nobility, which I had been in the past, but I didn't know about it at that point. And I really pleaded hard, and I got an A. I thought, maybe I deserve to C. I got an A. They really appreciated it, the teachers and the other students. And so, in a way, what happened was, I did not successfully plead for my life in this French incarnation, but I come into this one and I successfully defend the upper class and get an A on it. So, in other words, some of the karma connected with that situation was resolved because I got a positive result there, and I could feel good about it as a soul.
So even our little choices in life are important, huh?
Yeah. But anyway, getting back to my mother.
Oh, wait, Marie, before you do that, we have about 7 minutes left in this episode, and of course we can create another episode online if you have some more time to talk this evening. But I want you to mention where people could buy your book.
Okay, if they go to my website, it's mariegates.com, or they can go to ourpastlives.com,
okay.
And they will find on the home page on the left-hand side, the rail, the name of a bookstore, which is, of course, in Michigan, where I have my books. I also have my books at several other bookstores in Michigan. If they're in Michigan, they could go to Ann Arbor, they could go to Mount Clemens, and get the book. But if they're outside of Michigan, it would have to be requested at a bookstore. But if they just ask for Our Past Lives, Soul Patterns and Personalities and Relationships by Marie Gates, almost any bookstore would order it for them.
Okay.
They can also, of course, get it on Amazon. It's also on Kindle.
Oh, terrific.
So they can just go to my website, or they can order it directly from CreateSpace, which is the publisher, which is also an Amazon company, by the way. So basically, they could get it on Amazon, either in paperback or in electronic form.
Do you have a little bit more time to talk to us tonight? Because I'd really love to talk to you about...
Oh, I have lots of time. I can talk all night.
Wonderful.
But anyway, getting back to my mother, she has really tried to make up for how she treated me in the French incarnation, and she's done things for me that she never do for my brothers or sisters. I come from a family of 7, and she'd make dresses like late at night for me, and she always took my part when my father was kind of down on me, and I was special. So she did make it up to me in a lot of respects, and that's what we do try to do from one life to another.
Your mother now, you think, was your mother during the French Revolution?
Yes, she was my mother during the French Revolution, and she was a very talented woman in this life, too, with embroidery and crochet, and she painted a picture. It was the first and only picture she ever painted. My sister took her to a class, and it was so good that the instructor was amazed. This was her first try. She had a lot of talents in that respect. And back in the French period in which she lived, the upper-class woman would do a lot of that sort of thing, you know, the embroidery, and I'm sure the crocheting and all of that. That was what they did, and I think she refined her talents there, and so she had them in this life. So that's another reason why I believe she was in that life with me. Mm-hmm. But the other life that I think is very interesting that I go into in Are We Our Past Lives is that of Jacob Gruber, who was the circuit-riding Methodist minister in the first half of the 19th century. That was when slavery, of course, was going on in the United States. And he was, of course, anti-slavery. He was an abolitionist. And he got in trouble with the state of Maryland for speaking out against slavery in front of a crowd of slaves and their masters. Mm-hmm. And he was indicted for inciting the slaves to rebel, although they never really rebelled at that point anyway. Mm-hmm. And he went through court and was exonerated, but had to pay a heavy legal fee. And he died a peaceful death. He died of gangrene. I mean, in those days they didn't have a cure for it. It started in his foot. And, of course, I had trouble with my big toe, so that relates to that life, I think. And also, I got his biography, The Life of Jacob Gruber, and his picture really resembles my face, and that's on my website, mariegates.com. In the material there, his photograph and mine, also my photograph, and the photograph from Amanda's mother, who I was, is in there too, when we were both 20 and 21, and we have a facial resemblance. There is a facial resemblance between incarnations. And so anyway,
Marie, let's do this before we go further into that, because I have a lot of questions for you about that specifically. We're going to tie up this particular episode, and we're going to come back on the air in about another 5 to 10 minutes. So we're just gonna tie up this episode. If you can't catch the next episode, listeners, please, you can always download the podcast and listen to it at your leisure. And don't forget to visit Marie at her website. Please, Marie, tell us your websites one more time.
mariegates.com is the easiest way, but you can also get onto it by ourpastlives.com.
Okay, terrific. And in about 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to be launching the next episode, part 2. And I want to ask our author about the Akashic Records, about good and evil spirits and other things that happen in the spirit world. So there's plenty of the QR News, Unsolved Mysteries. And we are talking about past lives this evening. And this is a continuation of the first show. I think it's a very, very interesting topic, and you guys should definitely buy the book. But Marie, we were talking a little bit in the break about the Akashic Records, and I was telling you, one time I had a dream. It was one of the most memorable dreams I've ever had. I was being taken someplace. It felt like space or someplace there was darkness around, and I was being taken by something, an angel or something was taking me, something that was greater than myself. And we came across this huge, ball in space, like a planet almost, but it was full of crevices or containers or something. And I opened up one of the containers. So we flew into this planet type thing, and I opened up one of the containers, and all of a sudden I knew everything. I knew math and mathematics and languages, and everything was open to me. The world was my oyster, let's say, and I knew everything, past and future and everything. And when I woke up from this amazing dream, I remembered absolutely nothing, and I'm back to same old Dave again, without any enlightenment. Can you tell me, was that the Akashic Records?
It could very easily have been. That's what sounds like it, because everything that has ever happened on Earth is recorded there. Even our thoughts and our feelings, all of our actions and the actions of everybody are all recorded in the Akashic Records. It's also called the Book of Life, which I think is mentioned in the Bible. So it's the same basic thing, that God keeps records.
Why was I taken there?
It's probably because there was a reason that the angel or whoever was taking you there thought you would benefit from it. And what has happened as a result of that might have been you're more interested in that topic, and so that you might read more about it, do some more research on it, and gain some enlightenment from it. So that's why I think you were probably taken there. It sounds like you left your body.
And you speak about the Akashic Records in your books?
Yes, I do talk some in our We Are Past Lives. I didn't talk about it in my first book. I wasn't really aware of it. I hadn't done the research to that point. But now I am fully aware of this and how important it is. And some of the Hindus believe that the person, while they're asleep, will contact these Akashic Records and make a report of whatever happened to them that day, whatever they thought or they felt or they did that day. Now, that does make sense in a way that you do your own reporting, because you can imagine how many people, well, there's 7 billion people on the earth, and if the Akashic Records, they might rely on self-reports. I don't know. That's probably not the only thing, though. I know God knows everything. Mm-hmm. But that's interesting anyway. I just thought I'd say that.
Now, with past lives, you were mentioning that we choose our parents. We choose who, what, where, what we're going to look like in this time period. I guess what kind of time frame is it by, and what determines that? I mean, were you able to come up with some theories on, after we die, like the moment we die, what happens?
Well, we do go to the other side in most cases. However, that's not always true. There are some that stick within our dimension here because they're afraid to go on. And some of them are known as ghosts. And they might haunt a place because they're familiar with it. They're afraid to go on, maybe because they've been taught that they might go to hell because of what they might have done in their lives, or they might want to be with a person that's close to them. They don't want to leave that person, or maybe they're into gambling and alcohol and drugs and all that kind of thing. So they hang around the bars and places where that goes on. So there are some that don't go to the other side.
Do they think they're alive?
The soul normally, or the spirit, you might say, normally goes to the other side, and they will have a life review. And this is not a punitive kind of thing. It's the person going through it, or him or herself. And it's not like it's a judgment like some of us might have been taught. It's more like an evaluation that the person makes of his life. And then he can go on and, from what I've learned, go to some spiritual schools and learn things. He can help other people. And then there will be plans for the next life, and he will choose who his parents are, where he will be born, his race, his religion, his occupation, his physical appearance, any mental or physical defects that he might have. In order to learn more, he might be born with a crippled leg, and so he has to learn how to survive as a person in that condition because perhaps in another life he might have made fun of people who were handicapped. And so now he has to know how it feels to be that way.
Now, do we choose to be evil or good in this life? Like Jeffrey Dahmer, did he choose to be Jeffrey Dahmer and to be a murderer and a cannibal, or?
No, I don't think they choose that necessarily. It's something that they come upon. I think a lot of it is due to their upbringing, the way they live. If they are cruelly treated, they might want to act out against other people. If a child is sexually abused, a lot of times he will abuse other children when he grows up, or maybe when he's still a child. So a lot of it has to do with the environment, but of course part of it is due to these tendencies that a soul will come into a life with. It's not that they want to be mass murderers. I really doubt whether any soul is going to want that on their conscience. But it may be that they have a tendency to be cruel to other people. And why they would come in like that would be that they had been like that in the past, and so in another life, and so they have to resolve that. And it sounds strange, but that's the way it happens. You've got to get to the position that you were in a past life in order to resolve this trauma that you went through, or that you might have put somebody else through. And a good example is from my current life. In chapter 1 of our We Are Past Lives, it talks about my father, and I did not have a very good relationship in this life. I think at the beginning, before we came into this life, we made the agreement that he was going to mistreat me as he did in the past life in Palestine way back in the 400s AD, when I was a young girl and I got pregnant, and he didn't support me. He just said that he'd had enough, because the same thing that happened with him and my mother. I had been conceived out of wedlock, and there was a lot of shame in the community, and so they left the community and moved into another community, and he wasn't going to go through that again with me. And so my brother and I just took off, and we survived for a while on our own. He was only 10. Now, he's my son in this life. And the baby was born, and later on I felt so guilty because the father would have nothing to do with us. I mean, not just my father, but the baby's father would have nothing to do with us. And so out of guilt, I killed myself.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, that was a major thing. Whenever you kill yourself, that's a no-no.
Yeah.
And you have to resolve the situation around there. So I came into this life, and I really think I encouraged my father before we came into this life for him to mistreat me to the degree that I would feel as bad as I had when I killed myself. So I had to resolve that.
And you had to live through it. You had to live through it.
Yeah, I had to live through it. I had to get to the point where I could be all right with that, with feeling so low, low self-esteem. He got me to the point where I didn't think much of myself, but then he didn't think much of himself either, or himself. So I could see how that would have happened because of that. And so I did not get into the kind of trouble I got into in Palestine. I actually was able to overcome this and to get an education and find a decent husband and have a son. And so I led a different life, but it was really tough because I had to get past this feeling that I was no good, that I was like scum. That's what the therapist mentioned, that I felt like I was scum in that life. And I had to get to that point in this life that I could overcome this and I would no longer feel like scum. And that's what I was able to do. But so these people, I mean, it could be like a Hitler or somebody like that could come into life maybe having to resolve something like a real feeling of self-hatred, let's put it that way. And then sometimes if you hate yourself, you can hate other people, you know.
Yes.
And but then the circumstances that Hitler was in permitted him to get into power and to do the terrible things he did. So it wasn't just the personality, it was the whole environment, the whole situation that permitted something like the Holocaust. And a lot of it was because there were people in Germany, and I know that's where you are now. I mean, it's different now today, but that really didn't like the Jews. And so maybe they just turned their heads when they thought, well, these people are disappearing. What's happening to them? Maybe they just, they got relocated to some place, and they're probably all right. I mean, that would have been a rationalization, but maybe that's how people lived with it.
Now tell me about spirit guides, because this comes to an interesting bit of territory here. Let's say Hitler came about, he chose his path, chose the kind of person that he wanted to be. What kind of spirit guide would let him do that? I mean, is there evil? Are there evil spirits? And are some of those guides?
Oh, I think they're evil spirits, but they're not spirit guides. We wouldn't call them spirit guides. We would call them maybe demonic influences or something. Yeah, that could have influenced them. Some of these demons, but they wouldn't be guides. I don't think we would call them guides, because the guides are out to help us in our lives. And a lot of times the guides had been human in past lives, and at this point they're serving as guides to help other people, and that's the emphasis. So it's a positive thing. If it's a negative thing, people could get involved with negative spirits. Like I was saying in the last session, there are those that don't move on, or was it early in this session, that decide that they'd rather be in a situation where there were drugs and alcohol and gambling and other things that could be negative influences. And so, maybe they want to lead some human astray. That could very well be possible.
Have you ever encountered any evil spirits?
I'm not sure if it was an evil spirit or a part of me. We all have what they call the shadow or the dark side. But a long time ago, before my son was born, I had this dream that this big black thing was after me. And I was just terrified. And I went to a fellow author who was doing some work, in spirituality for some help. And she told me to get some holy candles, and I actually got a Jewish candle, and the heaven blessed, I understand, and I burned it, and I got over it. The big black thing didn't come back, but it might have been my shadow side. It might have been part of me, because everybody has one, and it might not have been an evil spirit. I have experienced spirits, because things would happen, like I'd hear knocks, or I'd see little white lights moving around, or I would experience my lamp turning on mysteriously. And the thing is that I had known a man who committed suicide, apparently, and I think he was the one that was turning my light on. And it was the strangest thing. It only happened a few times, and then it never happened again. And I never got rid of that lamp, so why didn't it just turn on, for years? It didn't. There was a certain period of time. And this man, I believe, was mentally ill, but I had helped him with his writing. I had edited one of his books. He was a member of my writers group. And all of a sudden, I heard from a girlfriend something very bad had happened to him. He had stopped going to our group. I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. But he had been in a confrontation with the police, but it looked like he maybe shot himself, that it wasn't the police that shot him. I never found out for sure it was a suicide, but I suspect it was. And so the night that he died, this cricket was chirping and chirping and chirping outside my bedroom window. It was chirping so loud that even though I had the room air conditioner in the window on and I had the TV on, I could still hear it. And it just chirped and chirped and chirped all night. And my husband hardly got any sleep and started doing it the next night. Well, I decided, yeah, that's him. He's trying to tell me he's on the other side, because when I was working with him, I, of course, talked about the past lives and spirituality, and I said, well, that I understood spirit could take over the body of something like a bird or an animal. And I think he appeared as a cricket. And he wanted me to know he'd been on the other side, or he was on the other side, that really what I said to him about spirituality was true. He didn't really know whether to believe it or not. He was kind of like an agnostic. And I went out and I said, well, I heard about your demise. I'm very sorry. And this is in my first book, Shadows on My Mind. I think you should just move on to the light. That's what you usually tell them. If you think you have a disturbed spirit on your hands, you tell them to go to the light. Mm-hmm. And I told them to go to the light. Well, that night, the cricket was still there, but it was a normal cricket. It was just a normal chirp. It wasn't so loud. I think he got the message that he should go to the other side. I hope he did. And then not too long after that, I happened to see this newspaper, a little article on his daughter having a son, and it showed her a picture of a little boy, and boy, that looked just like him. Yeah. And the child had a sad expression on his face, just like this man who'd been depressed. I think he was manic depressive is what I think, or bipolar. And I think, oh, that poor daughter. I know he was close to this daughter, and maybe he decided to become his own grandson, which I understand happens. And I just hope he's okay. I haven't heard anything about the grandson, but, things like that happen, but it hasn't been like a really negative experience. I haven't had, like, spirits throw things at me or really, really frighten me. Although I know they are around, because every once in a while I will sense something.
Well, I'll tell you, my father died of AIDS, and he was about 50. I think he was 52 years old when he died. And when my daughter was born, I swear her little face on the first day that I saw her little expression on her face was like my father looking at me. And I actually had a friend that is also very into past lives. He's been doing past life regressions, and he told me that before my daughter was born, that my father was going to come back to me somehow. And I don't know. I'm not, I'm a believer, but I'm a skeptical believer in things like this. And I don't know if it's because he implanted the thought in my head that I believed my daughter on her first day looked at me just like my father looked at me, but it was so uncanny how much she resembled him then, and actually still does now. I don't believe that she is him now. I think she has evolved into her own little butterfly. But do you follow me? I mean, could that be like? Do you think that when we reincarnate into somebody, we maybe hold on to a piece of ourselves from our past lives very much initially,
definitely.
But then evolve.
We have certain things that come through. Like I was saying, that I have a facial resemblance to Jacob Gruber. And what was really frightening was one night I was looking at the picture. Now, it wasn't a photograph. It was something else, like an engraving that they had in the 19th century. And I just got this gut feeling I was him. And I was just, really shocked and surprised that I got the feeling. I mean, I looked at him before. I looked at the photograph or the picture, and I thought, well, there is a facial resemblance. But it's different when you really feel it, when you really feel you were this person. And I think maybe I got this impression because he was clean shaven, and that meant he'd have to look in the mirror every day at his face. And that, like that face, that image was what came from his life to mine.
Mm.
So some things do come, and personality characteristics certainly come. And one of them that came from him was arrogance. And my mother was rather arrogant. She thought she was superior to other people, which I don't think she really was, but she thought she was.
Mm.
And see, she brought that out in me. And for a while, I felt that way. And I had to resolve that because that had come from him.
Mm-hmm.
He used to really be hard on fellow clergymen, especially Catholic clergymen. He was Methodist. And in his book, it will give people the impression that he really enjoyed making fun of them, other preachers.
Mm-hmm.
So he thought he was better than other people, and that came in, through me. Also frugality. He was very frugal, never stopped at a tavern for meals when he was on the circuit riding his horse, and I guess he depended on his parishioners for food. And I'm frugal. Go out and spend a lot of money on what, that came in, but that wasn't all negative. Sometimes it's good to be frugal too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially now.
Yeah, these personality characteristics do come in, and that's what we have to resolve in some cases. We have to find a middle ground. We have to balance them.
Yeah. Boy, I tell you, it's a lot to think about. Especially, if my daughter is my father, what does that mean for me and how I need to raise her? That's what I think every day is like. What is my responsibility here? What is the lesson that he's trying to learn, and what am I to do? What am I to learn from this experience? So it's a
well, you have to look at his life. What was his life like? What maybe he left undone as far as resolving his concerns or something.
Many things.
Yeah, and then think of what the daughter looks, or what it appears that she's brought in from that life, and then you can work with it.
Well, she's an angel.
But she's an angel.
She's an angel, and I think.
Well, how old is she now?
She's 4.
Oh, she's very young.
Yes.
You might not begin to see some of this until she becomes a teenager.
Mm.
You get to puberty and things start coming out.
And the little devil comes out.
So she's very young. She probably is a little angel now.
Now, Marie, let me ask you, for any of the listeners out there, because we have a large college audience, for any of them that are interested in exploring their own past lives, how do they do this? Do most psychologists or who do you go to regress into your past lives?
You wouldn't go normally to a psychologist. There might be a few of them that would believe in past lives, but I think the majority don't. They're scientific minded, and of course, like I said before, this hasn't been proven. And so with their rational minds, they really can't totally accept this.
Mm-hmm.
So what they need to do is to go to a psychic of some type that they would know would be doing that kind of thing, the hypnotic regression. If they go to like a body, mind, spirit conference, or if they look up body, mind, spirit things on the internet, they might be able to find people that do that kind of thing. The other way is they might want to do it on by themselves by consulting books, which would tell people how to self-hypnotize, that kind of thing.
I apologize for the beeping here.
Pardon?
We're having a little beeping episode here in the background. I apologize for that, Marie. It should stop in a second here.
I don't even hear it.
Okay, good.
But on my website, I do have the name of one woman that does those hypnotic regressions, but she lives in California, so I don't know how. Her name's Nancy Ubel, Eubel, and she's with the Edgar Casey Society. It's called the Association for Research and Enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the resource page of my website. They can, or people who are interested could go back there. I did have a session with her, and she did get me back to a past life that was way back when we were primitive, caveman type of things. And that's where my anxiety originated, when my mate had told me that I was stupid because I couldn't bring down an animal,
Mm-hmm.
And so I internalized that, and throughout all these lifetimes I've felt stupid and had this anxiety, which I still have. I'm still working on it. But her book is called Mind Walking, Rewriting Your Past to Create Your Future. And I think she was good at that hypnotic regression, and she might be able to even do some of that over the telephone. So she does have a website.
We could put that, actually, Marie, hold on one second. We can actually put that information on the YouTube page, and I'll try to post it some other places. So I want you to give the listeners your websites one more time, and then I need to mention our sponsor. We have about a minute left.
Okay, my website is www.mariegates.com, or they can go www.ourpastlives.com. Either one. It's probably easier for mariegates.com. And then on that resource page, there is the Mind Walking by Nancy Ubel, and I believe I did put some way to contact her on that page.
And listeners,
so she's just fun. Her website is Nancy EUBEL at nancyEUBEL.com. That's what her website is, if anybody wants to look at that. But she's one I can recommend because I know she's good. The one that
Marie, hold on. We're coming to a hard break here. Marie, we're coming to a hard break. I need to mention our sponsor, newmousepads.com. That's newmousepads.com. Go check them out if you want a really cool mouse pad for your computer. And we've been speaking with author Marie Gates. We're going to put information on our website and on Facebook to let you know where you can buy her books in case you didn't catch what she said. Anyway, this is the QR News. Thank you for listening. Good night.
Good night.